You know, there's something quietly peculiar that begins to unfold when one starts to wake up. Not wake up in the morning, though that's quite important too, especially if you've had a good night's sleep and a proper cup of tea. But wake up in the far deeper, rather inconvenient sense. To wake up to yourself, to the game, to the universe playing hide and seek through 10,000 forms. At first, it's subtle. You notice that what once seemed perfectly ordinary begins to shimmer with an odd sort of aliveness. The air feels thicker somehow, the light softer, more intentional. The world seems to be humming, whispering, conspiring to reveal itself. And you, poor creature, have begun to notice. But with that noticing comes something unexpected, a kind of distance between yourself and the people you used to feel so at home with. Your friends, bless them, are still very much involved in the old drama. They take the plot seriously. They're absorbed in the chase, the triumphs and tragedies of the personal story. And you, well, you've begun to suspect that the whole performance is more like a play than a documentary. Now, this doesn't make you better than anyone else. Heavens, no. In fact, the moment you think you're superior for being spiritual, you've fallen right back into the oldest trap in the book. Ego dressed up in monk's robes. The difference isn't moral or intellectual. It's vibrational, if you like that sort of word. You've started hearing a frequency that's always been playing, but most people's receivers aren't tuned to it yet. So while everyone else is dancing to one song, you find yourself listening to the silence between the notes. It can be a rather lonely business at first. You look around and realize that the conversations that once seemed lively now feel hollow. Not because the people are dull, but because you no longer believe in the script. Someone says, "I'm terrified of losing my job." And you can see, crystal clear, that it's not the job they're frightened of losing, but the illusion of control. Another says, "I'll finally be happy once I buy that house." And you can see the mirage shimmering on the horizon, always a few steps away. You can't unsee it anymore. When you try to share this realization, the room goes quiet. Your words hang in the air like incense, fragrant to some, suffocating to others. They look at you with polite confusion, as if you've started speaking in a language they vaguely recognize but don't really wish to learn, that you've stepped off the stage while they're still acting, and now you're standing in the wings, watching the play unfold with new eyes. You see, most friendships are formed on the unspoken agreement to dream together, to believe in the same illusions. We agree that Mondays are dreadful and Fridays are salvation. We agree that success means climbing up rather than waking up. We agree that important people exist, that failure is fatal, and that happiness is a prize to be earned. It's a marvelous game, but once you start to see through it, really see through it, you can't go back to pretending. You find yourself in a curious predicament. You can no longer participate fully, but you also can't condemn the players. After all, you were one of them not so long ago. The Buddha said, "I can only show you the way. I cannot walk it for you." That's a polite way of saying, don't bother shaking anyone awake. They'll resent you for ruining their dream. And that's precisely what happens. People don't want to be awakened. They want the dream to improve. A better dream, a more comfortable illusion, a few more cushions in the theater seats. They don't want the curtain pulled back to reveal the machinery of the cosmos. So you find your circle shrinking, not out of rejection, but out of resonance. Your vibration, as the new Agers would say, no longer harmonizes with the old tunes. You begin to crave authenticity, real connection, real silence, real seeing. And that frightens most people. Because most social interaction is a kind of polite hypnosis. We nod, we smile, we say, "I know exactly what you mean," when we haven't the faintest clue. We pretend to be confident when we're frightened, to be happy when we're aching, to be in control when we're utterly adrift. When you awaken, those masks grow heavy. You simply can't keep them on anymore. You start answering, "How are you?" with something dangerously close to the truth. And this causes confusion, even alarm. People don't actually want the truth, they want reassurance. They want to maintain the comforting illusion that everyone's doing just fine. And so, gradually, your relationships begin to fall away like leaves in autumn. Not because you pushed them off, but because the season changed. You no longer find sustenance in gossip, complaint, or competition. Your laughter now arises from silence, not from mockery. And the old friends, the ones still playing the social game, look at you with that mixture of affection and unease that one reserves for the eccentric uncle at family dinners. But what a relief it is, my dear friend, to be done with pretending, to sit in silence and not feel compelled to fill it, to look at another human being and not immediately categorize, compare, or judge. You begin to taste the extraordinary sweetness of simple presence. You discover that silence is not the absence of communication, it's the highest form of it. When you sit quietly with someone and both of you stop reaching for words, the boundary between self and other begins to soften. You feel the hum of the same life force animating both of you. And for a moment, the illusion of separateness dissolves. This is the great paradox of awakening. You may have fewer friends, but you've never felt more connected. Because you begin to see that the one looking out of your eyes is the same one looking out of theirs. There is only the one, pretending to be 2, 3, 10 billion. And yet, at the human level, the play continues. You still must go to work, pay the bills, answer emails, and wave to the neighbor who's perpetually polishing his car. The difference is, you no longer believe that any of it is ultimately serious. It's divine theater, and you're finally in on the joke. You begin to love people in a new way, not for who they are to you, but for who they really are, expressions of the same cosmic consciousness, each performing its role with exquisite sincerity. Your compassion deepens, because you see the suffering beneath the stories. The boss yelling at his employees is merely terrified of his own inadequacy. The gossiping friend is aching for significance. The boastful neighbor is simply lonely. You no longer take their behavior personally, because you understand the game. And yet, understanding doesn't mean you can play along anymore. You can't keep pretending that the poker chips are real money once you've seen they're just colored discs. So, you smile, you love, but you no longer gamble your peace on the outcome. And this can be rather disconcerting for others, you see. Because when you stop reacting the way you used to, when you don't get outraged or flattered or entangled, people think you've become cold. But in truth, you've simply become spacious. You've traded drama for depth, noise for stillness, fear for wonder. Now, this solitude, for that's what it is, can feel like a kind of death. And in a way it is. The old you, the personality constructed from opinions, memories, and social approval, begins to dissolve. You realize that this me you've been carrying around is no more solid than a cloud. And when it starts to evaporate, something miraculous happens. You discover you were never merely that little person at all. You are the vast field in which that person appears and disappears, like a dream character on the screen of consciousness. And once you know this, truly know it, not as an idea but as lived experience, the game changes forever. You no longer seek validation from others because there are no others in the ultimate sense. You no longer chase security because you see that impermanence is the only constant. And you no longer fear solitude because you recognize it as your true nature. You see, when one begins to awaken, one begins to notice something profoundly curious. The game of life that once seemed so serious begins to look rather funny. Not funny in the sense of mockery, but funny in that cosmic way, as though the universe is playing hide and seek with itself. And when you start to see that, the people around you who are still invested in the seriousness of it all start to look at you as though you've lost your mind. They can't understand why you laugh at what they fear, why you smile at what they mourn, or why you seem so light while they drag the weight of the world behind them. But what they don't realize is that you've dropped the load. You've simply recognized that it was never yours to carry in the first place. Now, the spiritually awake person finds that conversation becomes a bit like speaking two different languages. The words may be the same, but the meaning behind them, the meaning is a world apart. It is at this point that many find themselves alone. The parties, the small talk, the gossip, all begin to taste like cardboard. The laughter feels hollow, as though everyone is performing happiness rather than living it. And you sit there, glass in hand, surrounded by smiles, realizing you've never felt more like a stranger. That is not loneliness. That is clarity. You have simply outgrown the illusion of belonging that was based on shared confusion. Now, some will say, but surely, Alan, we must stay connected to society. We cannot simply retreat to the mountains or wander into the forest. And of course not. To awaken is not to abandon the world, but to see through it. The Buddha, after enlightenment, did not vanish into the clouds. He returned to the marketplace. He laughed, ate, taught, and sat among beggars and kings alike. But he was no longer bound by their games. The awakened one moves through life like a musician in tune with the rhythm, aware that the music is always changing, yet never separate from the song. So you may still have friends, yes, but the relationship changes. You no longer need them to complete you, to validate you, or to keep you entertained. You love them as one loves the wind, freely, without clutching. And that is a love far greater than the love born from fear of being alone. You see, we often mistake company for connection, but company merely fills the silence. Connection flows from the silence itself, and the awakened one learns to rest in that silence, to enjoy the sound of their own breath, the feel of sunlight on their skin, the quiet hum of being alive. They no longer need noise to feel real. They no longer chase conversation to escape themselves. And so, while they may walk alone, they are never lonely. They are accompanied by something far more intimate, the awareness that everything is companion to everything else. The trees whisper their wisdom, the rivers sing their songs, and even the wind seems to laugh along. There is a certain kind of aloneness that is not a curse, but a blessing. It is not the aloneness of isolation, but of intimacy. When you are no longer distracted by the chatter of 1,000 separate selves, you begin to hear the universe speaking directly to you. In every bird call, every falling leaf, every sigh of your own lungs, there it is, whispering, "You and I were never two." And that realization, once tasted, changes the entire nature of friendship. You no longer seek others to fill your emptiness. You meet them to share your fullness. You no longer grasp for company. You flow into communion. And when such friendship arises, spontaneous, unforced, free, it is no longer a meeting of egos but a meeting of souls. Such meetings are rare, yes, but their rarity only makes them more precious. So, if you find yourself with fewer friends on this path, don't think of it as a loss. You have not lost people. You have shed illusions. You have not become antisocial. You have become truthful. And truth, by its very nature, is selective. It filters out all that cannot resonate with its frequency. It is not cruel. It is simply precise. The fewer friends you have, the clearer the reflection becomes. And in that clarity, you may find something extraordinary, that the friend you were searching for outside was always within you, waiting patiently for your attention. The one who knows how to listen without judgment, to love without condition, to sit in silence without needing escape. The friend who has always been there. That is your true companion. And when you finally recognize that, you discover that you were never really alone. You were simply surrounded by noise and mistook it for company. There is a strange paradox to awakening. The more awake you become, the more alone you appear. And yet, the more alone you appear, the more deeply connected you actually are. Because you see, most people's relationships are built on a mutual misunderstanding. Two individuals agreeing not to wake each other up. "Let's keep pretending," they say silently. "You keep believing you are you, and I'll keep believing I am me. We'll make sure not to disturb each other's dream." But the awakened one can no longer play that game convincingly. They can dance in the dream, yes, but they know it is a dream. And when you know that, you stop taking it so seriously. You laugh when others frown. You rest when others hurry. You love when others bargain. You begin to move with life rather than against it. So, of course, to the world that thrives on conflict, ambition, and endless becoming, this looks peculiar. The awakened person seems disinterested, even aloof. They no longer get angry about politics or obsessed with gossip. They don't chase success or approval in the same frantic way. But it is not because they don't care, it's because they care deeply, but in a different dimension. They see that what you are fighting over is a wave on the surface, while the ocean itself, the vast being beneath it all, remains perfectly still. They know the ocean doesn't need to fight the wave. It simply allows it to rise, to break, to return. And so they love, not with desperation, but with reverence. They give, not to be needed, but because giving is their nature. They walk quietly among others, leaving behind not advice, but presence. If you look closely at truly awakened beings, sages, mystics, saints, poets, you'll notice something subtle. They are surrounded by people who love them, but few who understand them. And that's quite all right. Because to awaken is to speak a language that only silence can answer. You begin to realize that there are conversations that happen without words, connections that exist beyond personality, friendships that thrive in the absence of contact. You start to feel a kinship with the stars, the rain, the empty space between things. It's as if the whole universe has become your companion, a vast, living friend that whispers, "I am you." And here's the cosmic joke. Once you no longer need friends to validate your existence, you begin to attract genuine ones. Those rare souls who are also awake or awakened. They may be few, but they are radiant. Their presence doesn't drain you, it nourishes you. Their silence doesn't feel awkward, it feels sacred. Their laughter doesn't seek attention, it simply echoes the joy of being alive. When you meet such a person, you recognize them not by their face, but by their frequency. It's as if two notes in the great symphony suddenly harmonize. There's no need to explain, no need to impress. You just are. That is the essence of spiritual friendship, not a contract, but a communion. Not a demand, but a dance. You see, the awake one learns that solitude is not the absence of love, but its foundation. It is only when you can sit quietly with yourself that you can truly sit with another. Otherwise, you are merely seeking escape, using another person as a distraction from the fear of being alone. But once you have befriended your own aloneness, once you have made peace with the quiet spaces within you, then you no longer enter relationships out of need, but out of abundance. You no longer demand that others complete you. You share with them the completeness you have discovered within. That changes everything. Now, this doesn't mean you stop engaging with the world. In fact, awakening makes life more vivid, more intimate. You begin to notice things that most people overlook. The way light dances through dust, the subtle rhythm of your breath, the sacred pulse that connects all things. Every leaf, every passing stranger, every ordinary sound becomes part of a magnificent tapestry. And so you find friendship in unexpected places, in the eyes of a child, in the laughter of a stranger, in the quiet companionship of the night sky. The universe itself becomes your friend. So yes, you may lose many of the companions you once had, but you gain something far more profound, a relationship with reality itself. You begin to see that there was never you and them. There was only this, unfolding, forever meeting itself in endless forms. The awakened one does not walk away from people out of pride or rejection. They simply drift where truth leads them, like a leaf carried by the river. Some will float beside them for a while, others will drift away. There is no bitterness, no blame, only gratitude for the brief meeting. For every soul you encounter, awake or asleep, is a reflection of the same light wearing a different face. And when you finally realize that, when you see that all friendships, all loves, all encounters are waves of the one great ocean, then even solitude becomes a form of intimacy. You are no longer alone, for everything is companioning you. Every sound, every silence, every heartbeat is part of the same infinite conversation. That is the grand paradox. The more awake you become, the fewer people understand you. And yet, the more awake you become, the more deeply you understand everyone. Because you see, in awakening, you stop trying to be someone in particular, and you become everyone in general. You dissolve into the great dance of existence. And from that place, friendship takes on an entirely new meaning. You are no longer making friends. You are recognizing yourself in disguise. So, my friends, if you ever find yourself walking this path and feel the ache of aloneness, remember this. You are not being punished, you are being refined. You are shedding the noise that once kept you from hearing the music. And in time, You will find that what you called loneliness was simply space. Space for truth to enter. Space for stillness to breathe. Space for love to expand beyond the boundaries of names and faces. You are not alone. You are all that is. And when you truly see that, you will laugh, as I often do. Because the universe has been playing this game all along. The one pretending to be many, just so it could rediscover itself. Through the miracle of friendship. Through the beauty of solitude. Through the wonder of awakening.